Quorum and take attendance.
Yes, sir. Town of Ashland, Mr. Hodges.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Barnhart. Charles City County, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Patterson. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Holland. Ms. Schneider. Here. Dr. Miller. Goochland County, Mr. Lyle.
Present.
Mr. Waters. Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Hudson. Henrico County, Mr. Cooper.
Present.
Vice Chair Rogish.
Here.
Mr. Schmidt. New Kent County, Mr. Moyer. Ms. Jordan. Ms. Stewart. Powhatan County, Mr. Kinney. Ms. Morissette. Mr. McClung. Mr. Powers. City of Richmond, Mr. Breton. Dr. Newville. Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. GRTC, Ms. Torres. Ms. Adams. RMTA, Ms. Dean. VDOT, Mr. Totten. Mr. Riblett.
Here.
CTAC, Mr. Bunn. Mr. Martin. Virginia Department of Aviation, Mr. Harrington.
Present.
Mr. Smiley. DRPT, Ms. Jubinsky. Mr. Hudson.
Present.
FTA, Mr. Koenig. Federal Highway Administration, Mr. Ofori. Mr. Rucker.
Yep.
Ride Finders, Ms. Ruffin.
Here.
Mr. O'Keefe. That concludes the call for attendance. We do have.
Okay, thank you, Scott. I have approved a request from one member to participate remotely, Mr. Hodges from the town of Ashland as a temporary or permanent disability or other medical condition that prevents the member's physical attendance. May I please get a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Been moved, second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Hodges. Any consideration for amendments to the meeting agenda? Okay, this is an open public meeting. Is there any members of the public that would like to speak to the board? You had a couple that maybe were here? Anyone online? Okay, we're moving on through. Can we please have a motion on the consent agenda, Ms. Schickel? Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. The consent agenda only includes the minutes from the March 6th meeting this month. And so if acceptable, we would be looking for a motion to include.
Moved by Ms. Schneider. Second by Mr. Lau. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We were going to discuss the officer rotation briefly for next year. I think Henrico is scheduled to be the chair for next year and the town of Ashland as the vice chair. Is that right, Ms. Schickel?
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that? Don't need a motion, just a discussion. Mr. Hodges, we can talk about that maybe offline if you would like later, but you are scheduled, town of Ashland is scheduled to be the vice chair next year.
Yes, we need to chat. At this point, don't see a reason why I can't perform the vice chair duties, so I appreciate the
Excellent.
opportunity. Thank you.
The only other thing, and I will presume that VDOT will remind us later, but there is the VDOT hearing on April 22nd. I think you'll probably talk about that in your section, so
Yes.
I'll go through that. I don't have anything else on the chair report. I'm filling in for Dr. Newble this morning. I don't have anything else on my chair report today. So with that, we will move on, Mr. Lyle, to number 6, the RRTPO Secretary's report. Ms. Schickel.
Thank you. Appreciate that. If I may, I just wanted to bring one other item to your attention. We are working to set the schedule for next fiscal year's meetings. So we'll have formal proposed schedule on the executive committee agenda for next month, but I just wanted to flag a couple of things for members as we prepare for that. Mostly because we work hard to try to avoid conflicts, but obviously it's difficult to do that with the schedules that everyone keeps. So as of right now, a couple of things to be aware of. We are looking to have our last meeting of the fiscal year this year on May 8th. As a reminder, that is a meeting date change from your normal schedule of the first Thursday. We made that move because of the intercity visit and the anticipated conflict with many of you in attending that event. As a side note, Plan RVA is issuing a public notice of that event so that members of this body, the TPO, and of the commission are adequately covered under the provisions of open and public meetings law so that attendance there doesn't violate any gathering of members of the commission or the policy board. So just as for an awareness on that. We do not have a meeting at this point in time scheduled for June, and so May would be the last scheduled meeting of the fiscal year for the policy board and its executive committee. We also, at this point in time, historically do not have a meeting in July due to the likely conflict with the 4th of July holiday. And so the way that the dates fall this year, staff is recommending that the first meeting of the fiscal year occur in August, and that would be on August 7th. We know that with local government meetings, sometimes August is a month that you take off. And so we wanted to just flag that so that if you need to make adjustments to that meeting, because it would be the first meeting of the fiscal year where a lot of our inaugural activities of the start of the new year happen, it's important to have a quorum at that meeting. So if you anticipate conflicts with August 7th, we would appreciate knowing that as soon as possible so that we could look at alternative dates. Janice has attempted to be in contact with support staff in each of the jurisdictions, and we haven't heard anything from those folks, but also know that maybe summer calendars and travel plans and things like that are still getting worked out. Through the fall, we're looking at maintaining the first Thursday of the month for, again, August, September, and October. We typically do not have a policy board meeting in November. Again, it oftentimes conflicts with VACO meetings and election week and things like that. And so it's typically been a difficult week to achieve a quorum. Happy to look at that schedule if needed, but certainly want to just flag for you that we're looking at August, September, and October as being the business meetings for the first half of the year. And then we would follow our new custom of the joint annual meeting with CBTA and the commission on December 4th, that first Thursday of the month. Heading into the new calendar year, again, we typically do not meet as a policy board in January, simply because the first Thursday of the month is oftentimes before many of your local governing bodies have had a chance to meet for your organizational meetings, and you don't always know who's coming back to the PPO. So we typically meet again in the new calendar year for the first time in February, and we would follow that same first Thursday of the month for February and March. April is a month that's difficult with schedules, and so we recognize that the first Thursday of the month falls on what we believe are the most common spring break schedules, and so we're looking at whether or not we should move that. So if you could help us think about whether moving that date would be right, and then May and June again would follow the same schedule. I'll flag for you that depending on the business that we need to take on as a body, we are still continuing to work with the Port of Virginia to schedule a port tour in February, March, April, May timeframe, hopefully a little bit later in that timeframe than earlier, just weather accommodations. But that's just a high level verbal overview. So wanted to flag that for you if you know that you're going to have conflicts and it's going to be an issue for your locality or alternates. It would be helpful for us to know now so we could look at changing meeting dates and coordinating that across all of everyone's schedules. With that, I'll go to the main part of my report. Just wanted to have a brief update on federal funding, and this will weave into my item later in the agenda on work program priorities. So I'll just share here that we had announced in December, actually Mr. Rogish announced in December at the joint annual meeting, the award of a discretionary grant program through, it was a prioritization pilot program, and that program is still under review with the federal guidance that are happening. And so that's one of those grant programs that you hear about in the news that was awarded, but not yet under contract. And so we're still awaiting word on that. Our staff team has proactively, in the spirit of past board meeting discussions, reworked the grant proposal summary to be in line with, we believe that it actually very successfully achieves the goals of the current administration priorities around establishing the return on investment of federal transportation investments and the value of that and the transparency of that selection process in MPO communities. And so our staff has taken a look at that and we have that ready to go should there be an appetite to forward that to our legislative folks. We've continued to be in contact with Federal Highway Administration, the awarding federal agency on this project. And they just don't have an update for us at this time. So we have that ready. Dr. McGraw, our commission chair, is ready to transmit that at his discretion based on the discussion, the guidance that we've gotten from the board in previous conversations. Other than that, we don't have really any other changes to funding that has been in place and has been expected for the agency. And we're continuing to monitor. We're seeing some notice of funding opportunities coming out now. And so that's illuminating for us to be able to understand how requirements are changing, but also what discretionary programs are continuing to roll out for availability to communities. So we're looking at that closely. And then finally, I'll just share that on Friday, we received the updated terms and conditions for contracts awarded under FTA, the Federal Transit Administration. I'm expecting those to be soon followed by Federal Highway Administration. We're reviewing them and have been in consultation with Mr. Gregory's office to review that and provide any insight as to how we might interpret it. For the most part, the terms and conditions are fairly consistent with what we have seen previously. There are a couple of changes that I don't think at this stage in the game markedly change our course of operations, but there are some new certifications around diversity, equity, and inclusion, new certifications around anti-discrimination policy, new certifications around Buy America Act, which traditionally doesn't really affect us because we're not buying product typically, but there are just a new couple of provisions like that. And we'll have a more thorough review once we can get the legal counsel, but just wanted to update you on that handful of things. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Ms. Schickel. Any questions from the group?
Mr. Chairman, just for my own education, our funding stream for operations is not dependent upon federal funding. Is that correct?
Actually, it is, yes.
Oh,
For purposes
okay.
of the operation and management of the MPO program, that is 80% funded by the federal government. It's a blend of 2 awards from Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. So next month, when you approve the Unified Planning Work Program, that budget is 80% funded through those 2 federal streams. There's a 10% match provided by our state partners at DRPT and VDOT, and then our agency through our local member dues picks up the remaining 10% match contribution. So we are, as an MPO, heavily reliant on the regulation and the funding streams through the federal government. And then by transfer of that, Plan RVA is the fiscal agent for the MPO, and it is the funding stream that funds the transportation staff positions here that support the MPO. So it is an operating implication for us.
How, Mr. Chairman, how is your crystal ball? What's your comfort level that we're not doged or diminished, shall I say?
I see that infrastructure and specifically transportation infrastructure remains a priority in the federal government. I think that some of the changes that we have seen have created a possibility that the strength of state Department of Transportation planning and metropolitan planning, regional transportation planning might be a model for how other federal agencies will operate in the future. I haven't necessarily seen any indication that the MPO infrastructure is intended to go away. I would look at others in the room that are following this, but I'm not seeing signs of that. I would say that, and those in the room that are better at this than I am, the surface transportation bill has not been reauthorized. And so the programs that we operate and the funding streams that our communities are reliant upon relative to transportation investment from the federal government are due for reauthorization in the coming federal fiscal cycle. And so I think that we, our MPO colleagues, our DOTs are all actively looking at what the formulation of those reauthorization bills will look like, which will be telling. And that's really probably all I could say with a lot of certainty. I mean, there's lots of crystal ball and speculation and opinions, but I'm not hearing from anywhere that this infrastructure is going away. We just follow the information and learn how to adapt as we have always.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm getting more questions as I'm hearing. Do we have a plan B? Are we able to continue to operate if that money for just because it's Washington were to be either suspended or not available as we might expect? Are we able to continue? Do we have reserves that we're able to tap?
The agency has reserves.
David, so you and then
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lau. So we've looked at a number of different things as it relates to finances. First and foremost, what are the core functions and how will those be funded? The bottom line is if something is not funded, then we wouldn't do it, right? So that's not an ambiguous statement. If there's no money, then you wouldn't do that. So the idea is to make sure that we maintain our core functions and our core responsibilities and make sure that those things are indexed to funding streams that are authorized by those who fund the organization. And I don't think that that's changed. That's been the history of this organization and many of the folks in the MSA for years and years and years. Some of the changes that did come as it relates to federal funding to certain areas and certain programs that are going to be defunded or certain requirements have been placed or removed, then we would stop. We would cease doing those functions just like we would prior, in prior years, right? For decades. So we are looking at contracts. We are making sure that, as we move forward, that VDOT's doing the same thing. Your county's doing the same thing. I know it's in your budget process. Hanover's doing the exact same thing. That when you're working with contractors and those who are involved in providing services that we contract with, that they understand that it's contingent upon the ability for us to pay. Now, there could be some folks that say, well, we're not gonna contract with you in that regard. I haven't seen that to be the case now, and we've seen no interruption in operation. But at the end of the day, if there is no money, then whatever that an operation is that requires funding, it would not continue.
Okay. And I'm just thinking staff. I mean, we're not in a position or I guess where I'm going, is there a possibility Goochland and the other municipalities would be asked to provide resources to make sure that we've got staff?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm good. No further questions.
I think it's also important to recognize we're one of what 500 or so MPO. Is that right?
Yeah, there's many hundreds across the country.
Across the country, so we're not alone in this. So, but
I just want to make sure we
Yep.
take care of the home cooking.
any other questions?
The only thing I would suggest is that if, with these authorization bills coming forward, I do think it would be prudent for us to contact our legislators and urge them to move them forward when they come forward.
Excellent idea. Contact the legislatures. Thank you.
I'd be happy just to pass this around. We can distribute an electronic copy. This is a handout from the last National Association of Regional Councils. They've got a resource around that. And so I can just hand this around so you can peruse what the priorities are for reauthorization from that organization's perspective. This
is the national organization. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
With that, I think we'll turn to a presentation on an amendment on 2045 from Mr. Ariel. Did I say that right, Ariel?
Yeah.
Okay,
correct.
excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Good morning, members of the board. I'm going to present you amendment to the current long-range transportation plan, which is called Connect RVA 2045. So as we all know, it is one of the three core products of an MPO, the others being the UPWP as well as the TIP. And this document provides a list of constrained projects, which would be likely funded by the horizon year of the plan, which in this case is 2045. So today we'll be talking about an amendment to this plan. Simultaneously, we are also working on updating this plan, and we are calling it Pathways to the Future 2050. This plan would expire on September 6th, 2026. So we have more than a year to approve the other plan. But for the correct amendment, any projects which we want to include gets included in this plan. So the amendment request is from Henrico County. It's a project interchange improvement at I-64 and Broad Street in Henrico County. The project has multiple things going on. Partial cloverleaf interchange, traffic signal eastbound in US 250, 2-lane westbound ramp, and then reconstruction of the I-64 bridge over Broad Street. And the project cost is around $131 million. This has been requested by Henrico County to be included in the constraint list of the project. Currently, this project is in the vision list. So, as I mentioned earlier, the plan has a constrained budget based on federal and regional funds as well as state funds, which we anticipate to have within that horizon year. And projects are prioritized based on the available funding. So there's a whole process of prioritization, and that process was vetted by the policy board last time. So the most important projects were in the constraint list. The projects which were still important but didn't make the constraint list cut were in what we call as the vision list. So this project was in the vision list in the long range transportation plan, which we prioritized last time. So the project is not in the constraint list, as I mentioned. For the project to be in the long range transportation plan, it has to have certain criteria. It has to meet the vision, goals, and objectives of the Connect RV 2045 plan, which was again approved by this policy board. It has to have certain regional significance, that magnitude that it needs to be included in the regional plan, which is long range transportation plan. This project needs to be, the project needs to be in the constraint plan to seek any federal or regional funding, including smart scale. So the project is currently going the NEPA process, and to finalize that process, this project has to be in the constraint plan. So that's the requirement for the NEPA plan. So as I mentioned, the constraint plan is is something in which we have that constraint budget, and if we want to add anything, we have to remove something from that. So it's something that has to be managed. So based on our discussion with VDOT and Henrico County, we recognize these three projects, which is listed down there. The Carolina Avenue widening from Richmond, Henrico Turnpike to Lavenham Avenue, Pemberton Road widening, and then Sadie Grove Road widening from Knuckles Road to Hanover County line. So all these three projects, if you look at the sum total, it's around 133 million, which meets the requirement of the project. It needs to be included now. So based on the discussion with VDOT and Henrico County, staff is basically proposing to switch these projects from the constraint list to the vision list. So we are basically saying that these are still important, but currently this project is more important than right. So the ask is basically three-pronged. The first one is basically to add this project into the constraint list of Connect RV 2045. Since this project is an interchange configuration, it doesn't trigger air quality conformity, so we don't worry about that. And then finally, to remove these projects, the listed projects there, to the vision list, so that we can add this project to the constraint list of project, and the budget. Since the budget is fixed, we don't need to worry about that. So that's what we are asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Ariel. We're moving 130 million roughly from the vision list to the constraint list, and we're moving from the constraint list to the vision list.
Right.
No money changing, we're moving some projects. Any questions?
Mr. Vice Chair, I'm I'm sure that our division director, Ms. Spindler, she is the one that made the motion to get this approved, so we are 100% in alliance with our division director, so I just want to say that for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Any other questions from anyone on the team? I'll need a motion to adopt this resolution to amend the 2045 Connect RVA to include the 64-250 interchange improvement project in the constraint plan, and then move the other three projects to the vision plan.
Ms. Vice Chair, make the motion. So moved.
So moved by Reverend
Second.
Cooper, seconded by Ms. Schneider. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Ayes have it. Thank you. And with that, we will turn to a presentation from GRTC. Is it Ms. Torres presenting? No, is it?
Chris Robinson.
I'm sorry, who?
Sorry, good morning.
Good morning.
Patricia Robinson, Assistant Director of Planning and Scheduling.
Good morning, Ms. Robinson.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. I just have a very brief presentation ahead of the action item on your agenda today. So this is our FY26 Regional Public Transportation Plan update. And then just the high level background is with the creation of CBTA. GRTC is in collaboration with the TPO to develop a plan of services for the upcoming fiscal year that lays out the anticipation of CBTA funds. So we'll be going over just our priorities, operating revenue, and service updates. So the FY26 priorities for GRTC is going to be to continue service with the same operating, or continue operating service at the same levels operating in 2025, prioritize capital requirements to maintain state of good repair, targeting revenue experience and business efficiencies improvements, and advanced planning studies for operational and capital mobility priorities in the region, as well as prepare for service updates in 2026. Our operating revenue breakdown is on the screens and your memo as well. The maintained transit operations is 28.6 million to maintain operations level service. Planning studies is 250,000 to support microtransit implementation and analysis. And then our capital state of good repair and rider experience is 1.2 million. And that goes as our capital match for federal grant projects, that 2% match. I did just want to discuss the overall budget as well. Our estimated total of CBTA funds to be approved by the end of FY25 is 33.9. What's on the screen above you is 30.05 million. So it's anticipated that the difference of 3.85 would be put into a restricted reserve following GRTC standard practice of reserving the current fiscal year to use for the next fiscal year. The estimated total amount for FY26 is going to be 35 million. And so that would be anticipated that GRTC would utilize those funds in FY 2027. And then our quick service updates for 2026 would be replacing 3 low performing and peak service only fixed route services with expansions and additions of microtransit zones. And then just our high level schedule here. We're already in April, so after approval from policy board, this would go on to get approval from CBTA, TAC, as well as the full authority. And this went to our board of directors for GRTC last month. So I'm happy to take any questions.
One question, can you go back one slide, please? The 3 eliminated routes, 56, 86, 88, those will be replaced with microtransit, or they overlap service?
Yes, so our current model would be to cover the entirety of the route and to do duplicative service for one service span. So for our June booking, we would keep the 56 intact entirely, give people the option of using both and getting switched over to familiarize themselves with the new service. But the new service, that microtransit, is our link service, so that's a curb to curb model with a greater span of coverage throughout the day. So there's more service opportunities. But all of the same coverage area, service area would still be covered with service.
Questions from the group?
It's just that I'm very appreciative. I think Mr. Dillard and I don't know, Ms. Torres is gonna sojourn out to Goochland to talk to us about microtransit. Does this close the door on potentially amending and including Goochland as more is discovered and we're identifying bona fide needs or sharing those bona fide needs? Or does this kind of lock us in that microtransit would be even further down the road as far as Goochland's concerned?
It definitely doesn't halt any kind of conversation to get us started and other funding allocations. So we are still.
So we're just talking about a specific pot of money right now.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I can add to that. That's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so this actually doesn't even, this just addresses what we're using this year for CBTA funds. And you can see here, we're not actually using any CBTA funds for these pilots. But the conversations with you would be like, what is your actual need? And then we can identify a funding stream for maybe the fiscal year after, whatever you guys are ready.
Yeah, well, and we appreciate you dedicating a whole day for us to identify those needs because it's a big list. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve the resolution to endorse the regional public transportation plan for FY 26. So moved by Ms. Schneider,
Second.
second by Reverend Cooper, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving along, performance measurement, we don't have anything on the item for the meeting agenda for that. Which then leads us to the administrative responsibilities, Ms. Schickel.
Appreciate it. I wanted to give you a little bit of a briefing on where we are with regard to preparing for our presentation at next month's policy board meeting for the Unified Planning Work Program. Typically in this month, we talk with the policy board and the executive committee about our approach. And this is an opportunity to give input as to that, so that as we move into conversations with the TAC in the upcoming meeting cycle and then come back to you on May 8th, we've adequately designed a work program for the fiscal year that is reflective of the needs in the region. So to do a little bit of grounding from where we were earlier in the agenda when I gave an update on the federal funding update, metropolitan planning organizations are codified in US law under 23 USC 134. So just want to sort of start there. And we take and have always designed our work program based on the 10 planning factors that exist in United States Code governing the responsibilities of metropolitan planning organizations. You heard from Sulab earlier this morning that our three core deliverables or core planning products, I should say, for metropolitan planning organizations are the Unified Planning Work Program. We call that the UPWP. It's the narrative and budget for the allocation of the federal resources that come to this region to plan adequately under the code provisions for MPOs. The Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, that is the activation of dollars in this region to projects, and you all take regular action, not quite on a monthly basis, but many months to be able to revise and amend that TIP, the transportation program, to allocate dollars to projects that are funded and will be moving forward to action in the region. And then, of course, the guiding vision document for the region is the long-range transportation plan. So as evidenced by this action this morning, that is the vision for the region's transportation infrastructure and the spend plan, if you will. So if you think about your local comprehensive plan, that would be a comparable type of document to our LRTP. And then your capital improvement plan would be the constrained portion of the comprehensive plan. And then, of course, your annual budget is the actualization of those investments and appropriation to real projects. So you can imagine how our core planning products of an MPO stack into a similar kind of framework that you use in local government. So we've approached, just as we have every year, updating our Unified Planning Work Program for next fiscal year relative to the maintenance and ongoing activity around those three core planning products. We've also recognized that 2025 is our year that we are due, if you will, for our triennial certification review. And so that is where we are evaluated for compliance. And our state partners are evaluated for compliance under the code provisions for metropolitan planning organizations. And so that has been an integral part of this year's work program and assuring that our Ts are crossed and our Is are dotted from a compliance factor, and that will continue into the next fiscal year as we prepare. I would anticipate that that certification review would kick off sometime in the fall and would go over the course of the next few months as we would move through that certification process. In addition to those two kind of key core compliance related priorities, we do know from discussions with this board that prioritization of safety is of utmost interest. We had a detailed presentation last month, and the board adopted our transportation safety performance measures, and so we know that that continues to be a priority. And so safety is proposed to be established as a standalone program in the upcoming work program fiscal year, really to be able to move toward our safety action plan and build the regional messaging campaign with our coalition of partners. It's been discussed many times at the TAC meeting and really as being shaped by your local government professional staff and transportation to help advise how the MPO can be of help to be able to move that safety campaign and messaging forward. And then finally, the fourth major theme in our upcoming work program framework is envisioning a multimodal future. And so continuing to think about the integration of our bicycle and pedestrian facilities as a mode of transportation across the region. Certainly with the influx of funding from the CVTA in support of the Fall Line Trail, that comes as no surprise, I'm sure, to you. But also, as you've heard, I think earlier in the fiscal year from Dorian on our team, building up our freight network and our programming around that. Again, back to GRTC supporting the work that they are doing in bringing expansion of service through BRT and transit-oriented development, and then also continuing to work with them on identifying alternative funding streams to the current for maintaining zero fare in their transit operation program. So that's very high level, again, grounded in our compliance and certification requirements, understanding our what we understand to be regional priorities for safety, and then also continuing this multimodal future that has been envisioned in the previous and is continuing to show up in our current planning for the update of the long-range transportation plan. The work program itself, when you see it next month, will be organized much as it has been in the past. It's 4 kind of core components: program management, data coordination and public engagement, long-range planning, and short-term planning. So it ties and aligns nicely with the core planning products of the organization. And we're also conscious of the fact that those core planning products tie in nicely with the other body of work that happens in the Plan RBA agency. We'll be completing the regional comprehensive economic development strategy, also completing the region's natural resources plan next fiscal year, initiating our region's hazard mitigation plan, and completing our climate pollution reduction plan, all of which have interconnectedness with transportation. And so each of those plan converts have a really nice opportunity to overlap and make sure that we're aligning in a way that is moving each of those goals and objective sets forward in a coordinated way. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we are, as I said earlier, benefiting from the guidance that's coming out, not only from the executive orders, but also from the updated terms and conditions and these notice of funding availabilities that are being released, and really understanding how to shape the language. As of yet, the Department of Transportation hasn't initiated release of what we typically get from a new administration and what they call planning emphasis areas, which is sort of taking that code and saying, here are the 10 factors that MPOs are responsible for, and this is where we'd like to really see emphasis. That hasn't been released yet, but we're taking a cue from the release of the information so far to understand that. And so things that we know are of importance is this idea of assuring that the work that we do as an MPO is directed to benefit all in our community. So we're seeing a lot of language around addressing the creation of opportunity for all and being inclusive of all individuals and families. And so we're leveraging the use of that language that we see in the guidance materials and incorporating that into our work program. We're also seeing language that suggests that a continuation of our emphasis on what we're calling in this upcoming work program system readiness. So that is the opportunity to avoid and recover from man-made and natural disasters. And we're also continuing to look at environmental linkages where we seek to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to communities around natural environment from transportation projects and plans. Some of that is still a little bit fluid as we see the guidance come out with regard to the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, and other provisions, but we're starting to formulate that language based on what we do know. And certainly the Unified Planning Work Program is a living document that can be amended as further guidance comes out over the coming year. So I'll take a pause there. That was probably a lot to share with you, but I'm happy to answer questions and just wanted to ground where we are and confirm that we're headed in a direction that makes sense so that when it comes back to you in May 8th in a final form for approval, you're not surprised by our logic.
All makes sense to me. It looks like we're on the right track. Are there any questions from Mr. Lau? I know you have a question.
Well, all right, since I've been asked to ask one, you mentioned that we're receiving signals that I'll say the federal partner likes to emphasize certain things. If there's discord between what we have set locally and the federal, how do we reconcile those differences?
Well, I'll say, in keeping with Mr. Davis's comments earlier, I mean, this is a federally mandated program and a federally funded program. And so certainly it is the local prerogative as to whether or not you want to accept the terms of that program and mandate. But I mean, it is their duty to set the terms of the rules of the game.
All right, that's a good answer. Thank you. I feel informed.
Well, we look forward to any other questions from the group? I look forward to the May 8th and the unified plan, so.
And I just want to say kudos to Miles. I get to sit in the meeting and give the summary, but Miles is the true architect and his team. And so it's been a team effort to review all of the guidance and materials that have been coming out. And many of the people on our staff that are sitting in the room, everybody's playing a role in that. But Miles does a fantastic job in putting this together. And my hope is that we continue to improve upon the ease with which you can read these materials. And I think he's done an outstanding job of creating a hopefully user-friendly guide to that you'll see next month.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Miles, and thank you, Martha, for everything. With that, the Title VI review, Ms. Schickel.
Yeah, so one of those activities that we had on our agenda for this fiscal year in preparation for next year's certification review is a review of Title VI. Title VI is the section of the United States Civil Rights Act that all recipients of federal funding are subject to compliance. And so I just wanted to alert the policy board that the equity work group has been gathering for a frequent set of meetings over the last couple of months to review different components and are starting on April 25th, their initiative to be the first group of folks that are working with staff to review our existing Title VI plan. From a schedule perspective, we have the benefit of a compliance review for Title VI administered by the State Department of Transportation. That's scheduled to start next Thursday. And so I'm looking forward to the companion technical assistance that comes with that compliance review. And it's timing nicely with the kickoff of our Title VI plan and activities. So assuming we do meet on that August 7th date as a policy board, that will be the next time the Title VI plan would come for update recommendations for any updates that we need to make to that plan and set of activities. So wanted to alert you to that. It's just an item that is underway with staff and that equity work group committee, and then we'll pass through your CTAC to come to you.
So look forward to something maybe August 7th on that, okay? And the bylaws update?
Similarly, again, in preparation for certification review and just frankly, good governance housekeeping, we had on the agenda this year to look at our bylaws as well. I think that the federal guidance coming out is instructive to that process. So we'll be looking at bringing a recommendation of things that we think we need to address in our bylaws to the May 8th executive committee meeting. That'll be more of a discussion. And then we'll head into the summer with proposed revisions, and then we'll have that slated to move through the bylaws amendment process as prescribed by the bylaws headed into the next fiscal year as well. So just as a look ahead, wanted you to be aware that we are doing that work. And so if my ask you is that if you have observed something in the bylaws that you think need to be addressed, this will be the invitation to identify that so that we can move into that review process with legal counsel proactively to address your concerns. If you don't have any, that's completely fine, but we just want to make sure that from a governance perspective, we are doing what we say we will do and we are doing what we need to be doing.
And where would one find the bylaws?
They are posted on our website. They're also in the member portal that you can access from our website. I think that the website's pretty easy to navigate, so, but we can always share it out.
Someone
That would
knows
be
they can
helpful.
reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all.
Any questions? Okay, with that, we'll move to agency and committee reports, and Mr. Rucker is not here,
He's
correct?
not.
No. Mr. Totten?
I'll speak on behalf of Mr. Totten this morning. Our agency report we have provided to Janice and Martha. We'll share a few highlights. The CTB meeting from March, the workshop portion of the meeting did have some noteworthy conversations regarding V-Trans priorities, as well as performance measures associated with V-Trans. What is critically important to that is that does set the stage for ultimately what can be projects that can be applied for in various different funding sources like Smart Scale. So the presentations that were provided there certainly have an impact on what projects can move forward later in the process. At the action item meeting for the CTB in March, there were discussions on project pipeline studies. There were 3 within the MPO that were approved. Also a very good source for what can be potential applications for projects in the future, because the homework is done with those studies to justify the benefits and come up with recommended alternatives for the problems and identified solutions that come with those studies. So very good news for us that we had project pipeline studies approved in Chesterfield, Henrico, and Hanover County within this MPO area. So we were pleased with that. The next CTB meeting is April 15th. A key component of that meeting will be the presentation of the draft 6-year plan, which will include the staff recommended scenario for smart scale projects that were shared with the public in January. I want to talk a little bit about the 6-year plan development process and some key dates that are important. Obviously, April 15th, the CTB is presented with a draft 6-year plan that begins that multi-month process of ultimately approval for that plan, for the 6-year plan annually. April 22nd is the 6-year plan spring public meeting for Richmond District. It's at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the Richmond District office at 2430 Pine Forest Drive. It is open to the public, and we strongly encourage anyone who has comments, positive or negative, about anything that is in the draft 6-year plan to come and share your comments, feedback, and suggestions. I know Miles had done a presentation to this body previously on how well the district and the MPO did in the smart scale application process this year. That is at this point a staff recommended scenario, and that will be included in the draft plan. I can tell you that there will probably be comments across the state that are maybe not as supportive of Richmond District getting 34% of the entire statewide pot of smart scale. So any positive or negative comments that member jurisdictions, the public, elected officials, anyone has are very much encouraged and very welcomed at that April 22nd meeting. We're trying to encourage everybody. It's an open public meeting as it is every year. It's important every year. It's particularly important this year, I think. So April 15th, the draft 6-year plan comes out. April 22nd is the first of the 9 district spring 6-year plan meetings. Richmond District is the first of the 9. They will all occur between the April and May CTB meetings. At the May CTB meeting, there will be a general discussion amongst the CTB on what that consensus scenario might look like, how they may adjust project recommendations in the draft 6-year plan. Ultimately, it is expected to be approved finally by the CTB in June. It would then make it effective July 1st. So lots of moving parts over the April, May, and June time period. Another note on funding programs, transportation alternatives and revenue sharing applications have opened up as of the beginning of April. Pre-applications are required as a part of that process. You guys are probably familiar with the every 2 years, we have different application cycles. This is this time that transportation alternatives and revenue sharing applications start. So Smart Scale is on the off years from where transportation alternatives and revenue sharing applications fall. I'll point out that the applications are open now for pre-application. So any applications that any jurisdiction or applicant wants to submit, now is the time to get them started. If you don't get them started, pre-applications actually are due by May 30th. Got a month and a half left, essentially, to get those pre-applications in. If there is any assistance that any jurisdiction or applicant needs, the district staff is certainly willing to help with that if needed. In our update, in our agency update, we have several updates on Fall Line Trail, Mayo Bridge, Shore Pump Area transportation improvements projects. They're pretty similar to where we've been in the past, but those links and references are available in our report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Question, Mr. Ribble, so the April 22nd meeting.
Yes.
I mean, if we're elected officials, as many people as we can get down there, that care about the 6-year plan, the better, right?
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And that is whether you agree with what's in the recommended scenario or whether or not you want to, advocate for projects that may not have been included in the recommended scenario. All comments are welcome.
All comments are welcome, so just an FYI. Any questions for Mr. Riblet? Anyone?
Just confirming the location of the April 22nd meeting.
It is 2430 Pine Forest Drive. It's VDOT's Richmond District Office in South Chesterfield.
Okay,
Right off of Route 1, just before you get to Colonial Heights on the left-hand side if you're coming south.
all right.
Right.
What is passport control like for Goochland?
You're completely welcome, no problems. We only have a toll there, it's nice. Lovely.
No easy pass required.
No easy pass required, free.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mr. Riblet.
Absolutely.
DRPT?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, Wood Hudson will be providing the update today. I have first an administrative item. This is a reminder that the FY26 5303 grant applications will be closing on May 1st. Staff have been provided with that update and are aware of those deadlines. We are expecting that those applications will include a copy of the draft UPWP. In terms of the federal awards that fund 5303, we are still awaiting on the state apportionment amounts from the Federal Transit Administration, and we'll be providing those to our partners once they're available to us. To reiterate the 6-year plan discussion, DRPT's process tracks that of VDOT's. Our information will be available on or before April 15th. That will provide draft details regarding transit awards. So that is state capital assistance, state operating assistance, and state projects that are funded through our special programs. In addition, I'd like to let everybody know that the Virginia Transit Association is hosting their annual conference here in Richmond on May 28th, 29th at the Richmond Marriott. Conference details and registration are available on the Virginia Transit Association's website. It's a great opportunity to engage and learn more about what's going on with transit in the Commonwealth. All of our transit agencies generally attend, and it's just a good event to understand the state of transit in the Commonwealth. That concludes my updates, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions?
Just the transit conference, that's registration required and.
Yes, sir.
And it's your website?
It's the Virginia Transit Association.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing none, GRTC?
Yes, just a couple updates. I had promised you guys, KPI information. We are close to getting it released on our dashboard. I'm hoping it would be today. So hopefully by next week, but we're putting all of our fixed route information, all of our micro transit information, so it'll be at your fingertips, month by month. I also want to say that we have started kind of meeting with the jurisdictions related to micro transit. Chesterfield was very creative, with kind of their annual review of the link service. We got to do a tour and go to a restaurant coordinated by Ms. Schneider. And that was a lot of fun to intro restaurant week. So I want to acknowledge that. And we are going to be creative in ways to continue outreach. I learned about Cole, we have a mascot. So we're going to do maybe using Cole within our link service to continue kind of promotion. Then we've also met with Ashland on Monday, which was a nice conversation. Their service is just doing amazing, and looking to actually put another vehicle out there. And we met with Powhatan as well, and that one we are going to needs lots and lots of outreach to different model. It's very rural, so looking at ways to kind of grow that service as we kind of pilot that as our rural opportunity. And as Mr. Lau said, we will be going to Goochland as well to have some conversation. So if anyone else would like to also have some conversations about service in general or micro transit, we are open to that as well.
Any questions for Ms. Torres? Looking forward to the KPIs. That'll be fascinating. Thank you very much for that. Moving along to RMTA.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you? Great. Just a couple of things. We are, as everyone else, engaged in our budget, very busy budget season. As there was a lot of discussion about federal funding earlier in the meeting. Just as a reminder, we are totally self-sustaining. We don't receive any federal dollars. And so we are diligently working to get our budget completed and voted on in May by our board. The second thing I have is that we will have some very exciting operational changes that will start in the winter of 2025. And so it is my hope that at some point I can share all of that information with you all in the near future. So we'll work to schedule that.
That was the teaser. We can't know when it's coming.
The teaser.
Okay, very good.
We've talked about it a little bit with the when we did our total adjustment last year, 2 years ago now, almost. We will be shifting to all electronic tolling. And so this is a really exciting time for us as we plan for the future of our expressway system.
Very good. Thank you. I thought maybe for Mr. Lau that the nickel bridge was gonna go back to the nickel bridge again.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the nickel bridge because we're celebrating our 100th anniversary of the nickel bridge. Yeah.
Thank you. CVTA, Mr. Parsons? No?
No, Mr. Parsons is remote working from the coast of North Carolina
Excellent.
right now.
Any update from CVTA?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, sir. We've been visiting the different localities, working to make sure that we stop in and provide the presentation and the video that Chesterfield did for the CVTA, and that's gone very well. The funding is still looking very strong, and of course, you know, we've outperformed Northern Virginia in the CVTA, and I think that's due to leadership in the region. So that is my update. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Any questions for Mr. Davis, CVTA? And Ms. Schickel, Plan RVA, any updates?
Yeah, thank you. Our newsletter was released on Monday, so I hope you all saw that. And if you haven't had a chance to review it, it's packed with content this month. Thanks to Kristen, our editor on that. I got a compliment on Monday afternoon about how great it was. So it includes a really nice summary of our Pathways to the Future Regional Symposium that we hosted. Had a great showing of a handful of elected officials, but also of staff members from our member jurisdiction. So really appreciative of that. We had about 150 plus people in the room, I believe, many of whom are people and organizations that we aren't regularly in contact with. So again, I think a credit to the outreach efforts that we've been making. A big focus of that symposium day was to be able to engage our attendees on the long-range transportation plan. And so as a replacement event, so to speak, for the former annual transportation forum that we've historically hosted, this was a really great way to be able to highlight the work that happens at the TPO and be able to showcase how the planning work at the TPO comes to life with the implementation at the CVTA, and to be able to engage the attendees in visioning for what needs to be included in next update of the long-range transportation plan. So we were very pleased with the turnout and excited about the new folks who have joined our mailing list and have raised their hand so that they want to get involved in the planning work here. There's an highlight of some upcoming meetings that we have going on, nothing too out of the ordinary. I'll just again remind everybody that the commission executive committee meets on May 8th at 8:30, I think, in the morning. And then the policy board for the TPO meets at 9:30. So we're doing a change there. So I know I've said that way too many times, but it doesn't hurt to repeat when there's a schedule change. So again, thanks everybody for accommodating, and I look forward to those meetings in May.
Excellent. Thank you. I know that I often get asked, how can I get involved from constituents? And so sending them to the site and signing up is a great option. So thank you for that. Okay, moving on to other business. Any comments from the members? Just a reminder, we heard a lot of deadlines out there on the smart scale and everything from RPT. Just a reminder on that. Also for the electives, make sure that you look at your staff schedule for August. I think we're August 7th, at August 7th meeting, just to make sure and respond back to Ms. Scott, Ms. Schickel, if you're not gonna make that, your availability. Bylaws review and the April 22nd meeting to send that out, get some people down to South Chesterfield down Route 1. I don't have anything else, Ms. Schickel. Anyone, members?